Hello and welcome back to JP Gaming and KSP Extreme Super Duper Trooper Hard Mode. And today we are gonna be going to Duna, since I saw that we actually had a transfer window quite close here. And I spent the last little bit of science that we had on this node to get those wheels. But I then quite quickly realized that we cannot build a rover because we don't have, or we can build a rover, but we don't have a scanning arm, and I don't have the science to unlock that scanning arm. So I decided to just go with a lander instead. And it's not just going to be a lander, it's actually going to be a return mission. So we are going to go to Duna, land on Duna with this craft, and then try and return it to Kerbin. And of course this is not the easiest thing to do. I went through a couple of iterations here of the rocket itself to try and just figure out how I should do this, and I did put down these two antennas so I could have one kind of static antenna that is always unfolded, which is quite nice because you can have that unfolded at all times and not risk it being destroyed, especially since I have it in a kind of secure place. The problem with that antenna is, of course, that it's not very powerful. So my thought was that I was going to be able to use that antenna to get a connection to the relay that I have landed, because we did have a relay on the last probe that I landed and left there on Duna. So I was gonna have contact from this craft to that relay that then was gonna have contact back to Kerbin. Things don't really turn out like I want them to all the time, especially not in this video. So yeah, it didn't really turn out that way, but we found a way to make this work in the end anyways. And yeah, like I said, I did go through a couple of different versions of this, and yeah, the parachutes was one thing that I was kind of wondering about how I was gonna have the parachutes on, but then I still needed at least one parachute for the landing, but that turned out fine in the end. And this rocket that I'm trying to build up here, it didn't really work because I felt like it was just getting way too long, and that was going to make it too unstable. So I decided to make it shorter and wider instead, and to not like lose out on the size that we have here. I then also decided that we were going to build the rest of the rocket in this same configuration, with one main stage in the middle and then 4 kind of side boosters on the sides just put on there with some normal decouplers, the vertical decouplers, if you can call them that. Can you call them that? I think so. Anyways, we have now built the lander itself, which has way more fuel than we need, which is always nice to have. And then we built the transfer stage that I divided that up into 2 stages. So we're going to be using the 4 engines on the sides first, and then the middle one, to try and get even more delta V in total out of this thing. And then of course for the stage that is going to take us up into space of Kerbin, that stage went through a couple of iterations as well. I thought, since we had 5 boosters in total of liquid fuel boosters on the bottom there, I really thought that was going to be enough, but turned out it wasn't. So I had to rebuild the whole thing, and I made it a bit longer. And as you can see at the bottom there, in this last iteration, I added on 2 more sets of solid rocket boosters. So we have a total of, what is that, 12? Yeah, 4 times 3, so 12 solid rocket boosters. And they're also configured so I have 8 of them were at 100% thrust, and then I had the last 4 ones at like 60% thrust, I think, something like that. So we could use those in different stages and optimize the optimize the thrust. And now we're going into space. I kind of missed the whole launch there, but yeah, the launch went well once I actually built the right rocket for it. I did do a couple of other launches with the other iterations of this craft, but I didn't have to show that, I felt like, because I mean they didn't work, so they're not going to be part of the main mission, so why show it? So I took that away, and yeah, now we got into a pretty good orbit here of about 70 kilometers plus a little bit of change. I usually go for quite a higher orbit than this. I usually like to go for at least 80 kilometers, but you gotta try new stuff sometimes. And here I just thought it looked really cool when this thing was just like floating in space and twisting around like that. So yeah, now I just time warped a little bit until we went into a little bit better place to do our transfer burn here. I did find a pretty good spot, and yeah, there we go. About 1,000 meters per second, and we can get an encounter of Duna. And of course, we're gonna have to wait on Duna quite a long time until we can get back to Kerbin as well. So it didn't really matter that we were going into Duna from the outside, if you get what I mean, and if you saw that. Since, yeah, it was gonna take quite some time on Duna itself, just waiting around until we could get back anyways. And yeah, we actually had to wait in orbit quite a while as well, but I'm getting ahead of myself. We're doing the transfer burn now, and transfer burn, well, it went well. It does suck that I don't have a better probe yet, so I still have to manually make sure that I'm staying on that maneuver node. I really do like the kind of autopilot stuff that we have on the left side of the node there. So you can just click in, hold that position, and go. It is very, very useful, and I really, really like that. I like everything that just makes things more efficient. And yeah, making a little bit of a mid-course correction here so we can get as close to Duna as possible. I think we got even closer than that. I think we're at like 130 kilometers now, according to that node, if we, of course, do that node precisely, which is even harder to do when you don't have those auto steer kind of knobs there that you can use. And yeah, this time I was also a lot more careful about making sure that my solar panels actually had a direct like exposure to the sun, so we didn't lose any power on this thing. And yeah, now of course I think this happened last time as well, that I went to Duna, and just when I came up to Duna I realized, oh damn, I don't have any connection to the KSC, even with this quite powerful antenna. So yeah, I had to do a little bit of some cheeky maneuvers here to try and get us as close as possible. And yeah, I just went through the experiments a couple of times. I did that up here, and when we were going through the atmosphere and a couple of other things, or a couple of other places, just to make sure that we haven't missed any of the science experiments, because of course we are gonna have to squeeze all that we can out of every experiment, since we are only getting 10% science gain in this save, if I haven't said that before and if you didn't know that. And this, the first time we were going through, made a little bit of a picture there, probably gonna be the thumbnail. And then I thought, yeah, let's start twisting to slow this thing down even more, but that did not work too well. We just exploded. But I thought, let's not change the height of how I'm going in too much. let's instead just try and have the craft pointing retrograde the whole way. So all the heat is just exposed to the engines, which of course the engines in this game can take quite a lot of heat. And yeah, it worked out well this time. I had to burn a little bit, but I didn't burn, so we actually went into an orbit. I decided to, on the way out, when we had passed the periapsis, I started twisting it instead. And yeah, we didn't burn up, which was very nice. Not burning up is one of the main goals. And yeah, I did go around a couple of times just slowing myself down slowly but surely. And I cut that out as well because, of course, that is not the most interesting thing to look at. Just going around and going into the atmosphere over and over again. But yeah, we managed to do this. And then I did decide something that I had to regret later on. Because I thought, since we do have quite a lot of fuel left in this transfer stage, and I haven't used the middle engine at all, I thought, why not transfer the fuel from the middle stage to the outer stage and then try and land with that outer stage with those 4 boosters that we have on the outside, and using those engines as kind of my landing base or landing legs. But yeah, this actually made the craft very top heavy, which of course makes it very unstable, which is not too good. And you might have noticed that some of the orientations here has changed because I had to speed through like half a year almost, or no, a little bit more than half a year, I think, to actually get a connection to the KSC. And yeah, so I cut that out as well. I'm cutting out a lot of parts in this video because there was a lot of things that just took time and wasn't that interesting, neither to me or to you, I think. But yeah, now we're actually going in for the landing. We're gonna do one pass through the atmosphere here, going down to about 23 kilometers as our periapsis, and then we're gonna go out again into space, and then we're gonna be landing on kind of the same part of the planet that we went in the first time. Okay, that sounded confusing, but you can see on the screen here right now where that X is. That red X, and that is the trajectories mod, a mod that I really like. It shows you where you are going to be landing, and it calculates that using like the atmosphere, and if you're pointing this way, where you're gonna be landing. Yeah, it's complicated, but I really love that mod. It really helps, especially if you want to be landing something like a space shuttle or a rocket booster or an SSTO or something like that on Kerbin, and you want to try and aim for the KSC. It really helps, yeah, especially if you're landing rockets that are just gonna be like flying straight in and not using too much air to slow you down or to glide or anything. Then it's really helpful. But yes, now we are actually coming in for a landing, and yeah, like you could see there, we actually went in like sideways quite a long time. I don't know why the craft did that, probably because it's so uneven in its weight. Because yeah, like I said, we are very top heavy right now, which does make it very unstable when landing, and we're gonna see the results of that right now. I did go in for a landing, trying to use the engines a little bit to slow me down a little bit extra, but yeah, that did not help too much. And we fell over. But I wasn't gonna give up that easy, because I still did want to use those about 600 meters per second of delta V. It would be nice to use those to get out into space again from Duna. So I tried a couple more times here, and as you can see, we just kept on falling over no matter what I did. I tried landing in a couple of different places. I used different amounts of fuel and opened the parachutes at different times to try and just land in a spot that was a bit more flat. And like you can see, we did find some pretty flat spots here, but nothing was flat enough. I think this one was kind of close. I think it was the next one that was really close, but I messed it up myself by using the engines too much. I think it was this one. I don't know. No, yeah, it was this one. It was pretty good. If I hadn't used the engines that last a little bit, I think we would have been able to land. But in the end, I decided it was not worth the headache. I had tried that way more times than I was showing here. I just showed a couple of the times when I was trying to land. And yeah, I decided to just drop those stages instead and use the stage that I was initially going to use to land. I was going to use that to actually do the landing itself. Because then, of course, we have landing legs. Landing legs, they're called that for a reason. And yes, just doing a couple of science experiments here while flying low, because of course that's more science that we can get, just squeezing out everything that we can. It's very important in this save. And now we're just gliding a little bit here on the surface. I had to just wait a little bit until I could do a quick save. I twisted it around a little bit like this. That's actually a quite good tip for you guys out there. If you're just gliding on a hill, try and just use the Q and E and rotate yourself a little bit back and forth, and that might help you to stop at some point. And yes, now came the problem with how am I gonna get this thing out of here, because of course I am gonna have to steer this a little bit at least. And I don't have any connection because that relay that I was talking about is actually too far away from me to give me any connection, even if I had a connection. So I decided to try and just launch and then close the antenna as fast as I went up and kind of pointed 45 degrees or something like that. But when I did that first test run, I realized I could actually go up to almost 300 meters per second before I have to unfold that antenna, because it did break at around 300 meters per second. So I was like, okay, well then I can go up to like 200, fold it in, and then just keep that angle that I'm at whenever I hit that 200 something meters per second. And it worked. So we actually got into orbit quite easily on the second try. I did not suspect that. And now I did realize we have loads of fuel left actually. So I decided to set up some action groups here so we could more easily turn on and off the outer engines and that middle engine, because that middle engine is more efficient and those outer engines, they do pack a little bit more of a punch. And of course I still have fuel left in those, and I don't have any fuel lines yet, so I couldn't transfer the fuel in like a simple way. I had to manually transfer the fuel if I wanted to do that, so I decided to just not do that and just switch between the engines every now and then. And yeah, here we're going towards Ike. We're going for an intercept that's gonna put us at like 26 kilometers, I think. My screen is a lot smaller, so I can't really see that right now, but I think it's about 26 kilometers, yeah. And the Ike landing was, well, it was actually pretty easy. You know, landing in a vacuum, and especially when you have this wide base, it wasn't that hard at all. And of course, Ike is kind of a small planet. It's a bit smaller than the Moon and a bit bigger than Minmus. I think it's kind of in between those. But don't quote me on that. But yeah, it has to be, because we're at about 300 something meters per second of delta V. No, 300 meters per second of just speed. And that's our orbit. And I think the Moon, you need to be about 500, and well, Minmus, you don't need much speed at all. You just need a little bit north of 100. I think you need like 180 if you're gonna be in a quite shallow orbit. And yes, going in for the landing here, it didn't go exactly as I had planned, but it was a landing. It wasn't too hard. Got down here. I had done all the experiments that I could from both high above Ike and close to Ike, so I could just do the experiments when we had landed, but I had mystery goo left, so I could use that, and then of course the thermometer and barometer. And now we're ditching those landing leg stages, those side boosters. Finally, we can get rid of them. And we have not only this last stage, but we do also have another stage that we're going to be using for our transfer back to Kerbin. And luckily enough, when we got into orbit now, and I checked like where we were in space, we were actually at a pretty good spot to try and just get back to Kerbin pretty much straight away. So I decided to start trying to do that, but we were on the wrong side of Duna with Ike, I realized. So I just time warped a little bit, and now we could make a better maneuver here and get quite close to Kerbin. I don't remember exactly how close we were, but we were quite close. And yeah, I don't know what I was doing here. I thought the game froze or something first, but no. I think it was just, oh yeah, I was going to get a cup of tea. Because I've had the sniffles the last couple of weeks. That's also one of the reasons why I haven't been able to upload as much as I would have liked to. But yes, now we are doing that last transfer burn, ditching that last stage that is going to be floating around in space, sadly enough, so we are leaving a little bit of space debris this time. I have kind of decided that I'm gonna try and be okay with leaving a little bit of space debris, because well, this challenge is hard enough as it is, at least for me. Because yeah, of course, going with 120% re-entry heating and only getting 10% science is not really a cakewalk. It is difficult. And I'm really starting to feel that now that we have more or less pumped out all the science that we can from both the Mun and Minmus. There is still some to get from the Mun. We could do some things to get some more science out of Minmus as well. We could put down some of those surface experiments, I think they're called. Yeah, the ones that you put down with an engineer. Could probably do that, and I'm thinking I'm gonna do that maybe in the next video. Just going to the Mun and Minmus, going to a couple of biomes, maybe 2-3 on the Mun, and maybe the same on Minmus, and putting those down to get us some passive science income for at least a little bit. And then of course we can go there and put down more experiments when we unlock them. And I think you could actually do that on Kerbin as well. You can put those experiments down on Kerbin and get a little bit of science as well. I don't know how much, but I mean, every bit that we can get is good enough. Every little bit of science is welcomed. But yes, the re-entry here went pretty well. We had our trusted thermal shield there, so it was no problem getting in here. I was a little bit worried when we were going down here that I was going to land on a big slope and start rolling or something, but it was fine. We had a reaction wheel as well, so we were going to be stable. But that is it for today's video. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you want to see more, and comment down in the comment section if you have any ideas of where I could go or things I could do to improve these missions. Thank you so much for watching. Have a good one. Bye-bye.